Snow drifted past the tall windows of the Maplewood Library in Toronto. Inside, the world felt wrapped in a warm hush. Lamps glowed with amber light, casting gentle halos across the wooden tables. The faint scent of cinnamon tea mingled with the comforting aroma of old paper, creating an atmosphere that felt like a sanctuary from the cold outside. Elizabeth Harrison moved through the aisles with a quiet grace, her cardigan sleeves pushed up as she slid books back into their places. She loved this time of day, when the last of the students had gone home and the regulars had settled into their familiar corners. The library felt like a living thing then, breathing softly around her. She hummed under her breath, unaware of the warmth in her expression as she worked. Across the reading room, Rowan Harrison sat at his usual table near the window. He had only recently begun appearing at the library, but he had already become part of its quiet rhythm. A notebook lay open before him, filled with pages of careful handwriting. He always wrote with a kind of thoughtful stillness, as if each word mattered more than the last. His presence was gentle, unobtrusive, yet somehow impossible to ignore. He watched Elizabeth move through the aisles with a sense of quiet admiration. There was something about her that softened the edges of the world. She carried a warmth that seemed to seep into the air around her, turning the library into a place where even the most restless heart could calm. Rowan did not know how to speak to her beyond polite greetings, but he returned every day, drawn by something he could not quite name. One afternoon, Elizabeth noticed that Rowan's usual table was empty. She paused, surprised by the small ache of disappointment that tugged at her chest. She had grown used to his presence, to the way he nodded when she passed, to the soft smile that lived more in his eyes than on his lips. She tried to shake off the feeling and return to her work, but the absence lingered like a missing note in a familiar song. When she rounded the corner to the front desk, she found him standing there, holding a book with both hands, as if it was something fragile. The sight startled her, though she tried not to show it. He placed the book on the counter, and she recognized the cover immediately. It was a gentle novel about healing and second chances, one she often recommended to those who needed a quiet kind of hope. Rowan's expression held a vulnerability she had not seen before. He seemed hesitant, as though unsure whether he should speak or simply leave the book and walk away. Elizabeth sensed the weight of something unspoken in the air between them. She stepped out from behind the desk and guided him toward the fiction section, selecting a few titles she thought he might like. When she handed him one of the books, their finders brushed. The touch was brief, barely more than a whisper, yet it sent a soft warmth through her chest. Over the next 2 weeks, Rowan became a steady presence in the library. He always chose the same table, always brought his notebook, and always found a reason to approach Elizabeth. Their conversations were gentle and unhurried, woven from small observations and shared moments of quiet understanding. They learned the rhythm of each other's presence without ever needing to name it. One snowy evening, as Elizabeth prepared to close up, she noticed Rowan still sitting at his table. His notebook lay open, but his pen rested motionless. His expression was troubled, as though he were wrestling with something he could not quite grasp. Elizabeth approached him, her steps soft against the carpet. She sensed that he needed someone to sit with him, even if only in silence. Rowan closed his notebook slowly, as if reluctant to let go of whatever thoughts had been swirling inside it. He revealed he was a writer, or at least trying to be one, but the words had stopped coming. He felt as though he had forgotten how to write about hope. Elizabeth listened with quiet empathy, understanding more than she let on. She knew what it felt like to lose something that once felt natural. She offered him a few gentle thoughts, not as advice, but as a reminder that hearts often needed time to find their way back to themselves. The library lights dimmed as the evening deepened. Elizabeth gathered her things, preparing to lock up. Rowan hesitated before asking if she would walk with him. The question hung in the air, fragile and hopeful. Elizabeth felt a flutter of warmth in her chest and agreed. They stepped out into the crisp night air, the snow falling in soft flakes that clung to their coats. They walked side by side down Maplewood Street, their breaths forming small clouds in the cold. The world felt peaceful, wrapped in winter's quiet embrace. Rowan kept his hands in his pockets, afraid of brushing against hers by accident. Elizabeth walked with her scarf tucked up to her chin, her cheeks rosy from the cold. As they walked, Rowan asks about her life, her dreams, the reasons she had chosen to become a librarian. Elizabeth shared that books had always been her refuge, her way of understanding the world. She wanted to create a space where others could find the same comfort. Rowan listened with a tenderness that made her feel seen in a way she had not felt in years. When he asked about his writing, Rowan admitted that he wrote because there were feelings he could not express any other way. He had always found solace in the quiet act of putting words on paper, but lately the words had felt distant, as though they belonged to someone else. Elizabeth reminded him that hope was not something forced but something rediscovered, often in the presence of others. A cold breeze swept through the street, and Elizabeth shivered. Without hesitation, Rowan removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders. She protested, but he insisted, his expression gentle and earnest. The warmth of the coat enveloped her, carrying the faint scent of cedar and winter air. She felt a soft ache in her chest, a sense of being cared for in a way she had not expected. When they reached her apartment building, they lingered at the entrance. Neither wanted the moment to end. Rowan expressed his gratitude for her company, and Elizabeth felt her heart swell with a quiet, steady warmth. She watched him walk away, his figure fading into the softly falling snow, and she realized that something had shifted inside her. Valentine's Day arrived with pale sunlight and a sense of quiet anticipation. The library was decorated with paper hearts and small vases of carnations. Elizabeth wore a soft pink sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She tried not to hope that Rowan would come in, but the hope lingered anyway, warm and persistent. At noon, the door opened and Rowan stepped inside, snow dusting his hair and shoulders. He carried a small wrapped package in his hands. Elizabeth felt her breath catch as he approached. He offered her the gift with a shy, uncertain expression. She unwrapped it carefully, revealing a beautifully crafted notebook with delicate golden leaves embossed on the cover. Inside the notebook, on the first page, Rowan had written a simple message expressing his gratitude for the warmth she had brought into his life. The words were tender and sincere, carrying the quiet weight of emotions he had not spoken aloud. Elizabeth felt her eyes grow warm as she read the message. She closed the notebook gently, holding it to her chest. Rowan asked if she would join him for dinner that evening. Elizabeth felt a soft, luminous joy blooming inside her and accepted. The rest of the day passed in a gentle haze, her thoughts drifting toward the evening ahead. Dinner was simple and intimate, held in a small cafe with candles flickering on the tables. Soft music played in the background as they shared stories and memories. They spoke of childhood dreams, quiet fears, and the small moments that had shaped their lives. Their connection deepened with each passing hour, woven from shared vulnerability and quiet understanding. After dinner, Rowan walked her home. The night felt different, filled with a tender anticipation neither of them tried to hide. When they reached her door, they paused. Rowan looked at her with a warmth that reached all the way to his eyes. Elizabeth stepped closer, her heart steady and full. She leaned in and kissed him, a soft, lingering kiss that carried the promise of something new and beautiful. In the weeks that followed, their love grew gently, like a flower opening to the sun. They spent evenings reading together, mornings walking through the park, and afternoons sharing quiet moments in the library. Their love was not loud or dramatic. It was warm, steady, and full of small, tender moments that stitched their lives together. Rowan found his words again, filling pages with stories that felt alive. Elizabeth found herself laughing more, dreaming more, feeling more. They became each other's quiet place between heartbeats, a refuge from the noise of the world. And every time Rowan looked at Elizabeth, every time she smiled with that soft, luminous warmth, he knew he had found the story he had been trying to write all along. Not on paper, but in her, and she in him. As spring deepened, Elizabeth and Rowan settled into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. Their days unfolded with quiet certainty, shaped by shared glances, soft smiles, and the steady comfort of each other's presence. The library became the heart of their growing life together, a place where stories intertwined with real moments of tenderness.